experiences I had was I applied for a job at EA Games. So I don't know if you know EA Games, yeah, PlayStation, Wii, yeah. And I actually got the job as a games tester. But unfortunately ran out of money, couldn't actually get to work and back. I was really young at the time and terribly homesick, so I came home. So yeah, I actually got a job at EA Games as a games tester as well. Okay, so 2 seconds while I get my phone up and going. Great. Okay, so how's the energy? How's the mood? How's everyone doing today? Good? Yeah? I don't know. A little bit more energy. Woohoo! Yeah? Otherwise I'm making you guys do a 30-second dance to get the energy going. Cool. So today I'm going to be doing chats about lifelong learning, and you know the subject matter is wide and it's varied, and really what I want to focus on is reigniting your idea or rethinking your ideas around the importance of lifelong learning and what really is lifelong learning. So as you can see, what I put on the thing there as an introduction to who I am, you can see that I didn't start with my title, yeah, and that actually is done on purpose. So I don't know how many of you started your careers or at school where somebody asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Yeah, hands up. How many of you got that question? I should hope most of the room, yeah? Yeah. And I'm going to touch on a couple of points, and that's where I'm going to start the story, which is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Knowledge acquisition versus learning, and I just noticed that there's a spelling mistake there, so please excuse that. Learning diversity, the carpenter versus the gardener approach, and cultivating a habit of learning. So let's start with, and you can see I'm an avid Alice in Wonderland theme lover, and I want to take you down the rabbit hole as we explore the idea of lifelong learning. So the concept starts really with, who in the world am I? And that's really the great puzzle. So at school, you are asked, what subjects do you want to take? Because what do you want to be when you grow up? And they were the big five, right? Accountant, engineer, lawyer, management, doctor, yes, doctor. And then for some of us who were on standard grade, for some of our subjects, you know, it would have been a secretary, a nurse, etc., the little five, right? And that's really such an eye-opener for me when I started exploring what that really meant to ask the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because when you start to ask that question, what you do is you begin to limit your mind, the possibilities of what's actually out there. And back in the day when I was at school, that was fine because there was an expectation that, you know, that's the kind of career that you would have. You know, those, you know, industrialized offices, you know, you sit in these rows and, you know, it's one person after the next, and that's what your career is going to look like. And boom, now we're sitting with the fourth industrial revolution, things are changing, the machines are coming, and how do we face this changing world of work? And what we've got to do is we've got to start with that question, which is, what is it that you want to do when you grow up? Now that's a question that we ask our children, but it's a question that we face today. I've just recently, and my boss is in the crowd, I've just recently had a one-on-one discussion with him. And so what's the question that comes out at your performance appraisals at work? What is your career progression? Where do you see yourself in 3 or 4 years' time? You know, what skills are you going to develop? And honestly, I can't actually answer that question. And the reason for that is because I believe in this concept called multi-potentialism. And I don't know how many of you have heard of a lady by the name of Emily Watnick. Yeah, I see someone nodding their heads. There's a couple of people. Okay, but you guys don't come because you work with me. So, okay, so I spread her message far and wide. And the idea of multi-potentialism, or another word for it is a polymath, is somebody that has a variety of interests. Or as she calls it, you are a jack of many trades and a master at some. And it's really important to do that. And this is really difficult for me because I'm Portuguese and I speak with my hands. So let's put this away for a second. So what happens is that as you begin to open up your mind in terms of what it is that you want to do, and you start exploring yourself as an individual, your passions, your talents, your skills, you begin to create this overlap. And in the Japanese culture, they call this concept ikigai. And ikigai is that place of purpose. And it's where those things begin to overlap. And that's the passion. So what you really enjoy doing, augmented by the skills that you have, augmented by the things that you're really good at doing. I'm really good at writing reports. It's not my passion, but I'm really good at it. And so that begins to create this idea of the full human being. And that's what we need to begin to bring to work. And so we need to expand our minds away from the idea that you are simply the person that is doing the job that you do today. And that's the first step of igniting your passion for learning. Because I believe the idea of having to put yourself in this box of, I am going to be an accountant, but I'm a truly creative human being and I don't necessarily fit in that box, is the first place that you begin to lose that interest in learning. So that was the first concept. Right. So when you were at school, and because this subject matter is so broad, I threw it out to my Facebook people, which by the way, they're there, so we are live. So I threw out the question, what do you want to know about lifelong learning? And actually the lady doing my go live for me in Tombi asked me the question around, so what is lifelong learning in the face of the fourth industrial revolution? What's its history? Where are we today and where are we going? And that's a whole half an hour talk on its own. But what I do want to bring to the fore is the idea of knowledge acquisition versus learning. So at school, I had a business economics teacher, and what she did was she stood up at the front of the class with a textbook and she read verbatim out of that book. And me on the other side, I sat there, and all that I had to do, that was the only requirement of this class, was to copy everything that was in that textbook. Yeah, parrots. And that's essentially a lot of what our schooling system is doing. It's slowly starting to change, but up until very recently, that's how we learned, parrot fashion. There was this need to consistently memorize facts and figures without necessarily fully understanding what it is that was being taught to us. It was simply enough to regurgitate that information onto a piece of paper, hope to whoever it is that's out there that you got it right, and that information came back with a C, a B, or an A if you were really, if you had a very good memory. The problem with that and how technology has progressed is we are learning. We're constantly learning whether you acknowledge it or not. The difference is that we're no longer having to memorize facts and figures. Why? Because Google's there. If I had to ask you right now how many people live in Bloemfontein, who's got that information at their fingertips? No. What are you going to do? Google. Yeah. Okay, so this idea of having to memorize information is gone. You don't need to do that anymore. So what really is learning about? Learning is about really bringing in the idea of integrating information into your psyche. And the first way to do that is what I spoke about beforehand, is that passion. Yeah? It's a hell of a lot easier to integrate information that you're passionate about. But integration isn't just simply reading something. It's about teaching it. It's about getting to grips with it. It's about living it, living the concept. It's no longer enough to just simply say, oh yeah, we do design thinking. Yeah, we actually have to apply it purposefully in our lives. And so that's the difference between simply acquiring a lot of knowledge into our brains. We don't need to do that anymore. Technology does that for us. But it's about applying our mind. It's about critical thinking. Okay. Now, one of the superpowers of multi-potentialize, apparently according to Emily Wapnick, there's 3. So that's agility, okay, rapid learning, and idea synthesis. So here's the importance around opening your mind to acquiring lots of different kinds of information, okay, is the fact that the more often you learn, the more of a habit it becomes, the easier it becomes to actually learn. What happens is when you're opening your mind to many different subjects or topics and you're exploring, yeah, that exploration allows you to actually pull ideas from all sorts of different places to innovate. Yeah, you're synthesizing ideas. So one concept that I talk about, or one idea, or one example, should I say, that I talk about, is the person or the people that created the Fitbit. If you think about it, the person or the people, the team, yeah, had to be a diverse group of individuals. One, they had to have some sort of interest, talent, passion, or education in medical science. Yeah. Technology, because it's an app. Jewelry design, because it's a beautiful piece of arm candy in some instances. Some of it's really a bit boring, but I mean, some of the new stuff that's come out looks really, really nice. So that's 3 completely different areas of expertise that had to come together to create this new innovative product that has actually transformed industries. And so the idea of simply learning something to do the job that you do today is obsolete. Because if your company and if you want to actually innovate, to grow, to move forward, to have some sort of skill that allows you to face this industrial, the machines are coming and oh hi, we need to panic now. If you want to face that, you need to begin to ignite that curiosity. Okay. So learning diversity. So I'm not crazy. My reality is just simply different to yours. And here I know that we think about, so how many of you are learning professionals in the crowd? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so there's a fair amount of you. So the idea of learning diversity with regards to, we know that people learn differently, right? They're either auditory, they're kinetic, they're visual, yeah, that's cool, we know that. But what I want to touch on is slightly different, and I'm gonna start with and here's this opening your idea to different concepts coming forward. So I listened to a podcast the other day called Hidden Brain, and the subject matter was, why is marriage so hard? Okay, so bear with me. So the guy in this podcast talks about social diversity, and it's this concept that says, why is it that marriage has become so hard over the 200 or so years that marriage has actually, the concept of marriage has been in existence? And in the last 11 minutes, he kind of gets to the crux of the matter in that we actually ask too much of our partners. Okay? So now how does this apply to learning? He says, if you diversify your needs, you fulfill those needs by a diverse set of individuals. So we think of our marriage to that one person. They're our soulmate. They're meant to complete us. They fulfill us. They have to be the home care provider. They, the person you go to, at the end of a hard day's work, and you're pouring your heart out to that person. They're your lover. They're the person that helps you grow and develop as an individual. It's a hell of a lot of burden to put on just one individual. And so I sort of stood back and I thought, but could this concept be applied to the idea of learning? And by my estimation, I think it can. One, I think we spend way too much time putting that pressure on that degree and having that degree be every single iota of our education, right? So if I had to ask you in the crowd, tell me about your education, what would your response be? Okay, I'm really asking, what would your response be? I see you nodding. Can I? Yeah, what was the last qualification you did? Honours. Oops. So he's done his honours. Anyone else? Okay, it's interactive. I know it's the end of the day. Come on, guys.
BCom economics.
BCom economics, right? Okay, but is that the last thing you learned?
Nope.
No, it isn't. It most certainly isn't. I mean, I did my BA degree several years ago. It's most certainly not the full picture of my education, my learning, my knowledge. But we place so much emphasis on that formal education. And what I'm saying in terms of learning diversity, yes, we learn differently and each one of us is unique, but not only in how we learn, but where we learn and on what we learn. And I think it's important to place equal value on the informal learning that we do. So books, webinars, attending this event, conversations with mentors, networking, podcasts, all of those contribute to the daily learning that we have. Okay, the carpenter versus the gardener approach. Now, I'm a new mom. My baby turns 7 months old tomorrow. He's a gorgeous little boy, but he drives me insane because, I'll be honest with you, I only put this presentation deck together last night because for any of you who are parents in the crowd, you know your children just have this uncanny ability of knowing when the pressure's on and they need the most amount of attention at that point. So, because parenting is, I'm a new mom and parenting is, you know, one of the skills I'm trying to develop, and yes, parenting is a skill, okay? So fun fact, did you know that the concept of parenting, the idea of it and the wording around it is actually relatively new. It was only developed in the 1970s. Yeah, that like flabbergasted me. I thought this thing was like, you know, has been there for eons. So again, a podcast I was listening to around this carpenter versus gardener approach. So the concept goes, we have been parenting our children in the concept of carpentry, yeah? And if you think of a carpenter's workshop, everything is precise. You've got to have precise measurements, there's tools. You are carving something out of a piece of wood to create the end piece. Similarly to how we think parenting is all about, we're having to create those rules, those, you know, those rituals, we have to have those processes and those routines, and it's all sort of very boxed thinking. And that's really great if you're trying to produce a particular kind of person. And that kind of person was wonderfully set up to work in a very industrialized area, where you had, and I don't know if any of you were here for Dr. Poulet's discussion on design thinking, but a carpenter parenting model produces a child that is very good at process-driven environments. You walk in the morning, you know exactly what you need to do from A to Z. Here's my information that I need, or my task that I need to produce. Here are my numbers, my bum is in my seat, and I am productive. Whereas a gardener approach, if you think about it, the gardener approach, it's all over the place. If you've done gardening, it's chaotic. You cannot control the weather. Yeah, so you don't know if tomorrow you're going to get rain or not. You don't know if the seed you planted is actually fruitful. Is it going to grow? You don't know if the lemon tree you've been tending to lovingly for the past 6 months is actually going to produce the fruit in winter. You don't know. And that's the idea of the gardener approach, is to really actually provide a particular tool set to the individual to help them grow, but that ultimately their journey is their own. And that's the idea that I come through with the gardener versus carpenter approach in terms of learning, both within our organizations and for ourselves. And it's the concept of have a little fun. Yeah, have a little fun with learning. It doesn't have to be somebody at the top going la 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 la. Yeah, expand your minds in terms of subject matter. Expand your mind in terms of where you're getting that learning from. Expand your networks and socialize with people outside of your normal frame of reference. Because by exposing yourself to all of these different things, you're transforming the way you're thinking. Right, and a big one. This is a question that kept coming up with everybody that was on Facebook that asked me, I have a hectic schedule, I've got kids, I've got the house, I've got the husband, I also need some me time, I'm sitting in traffic 16 hours a week. How do I actually, is now one more thing I need to put onto my to-do list? And my answer to that is, it's not. You're already doing it anyway. I would put my head on the chopping block to say that you're probably already doing it anyway. You're just not recognizing that what you're doing is actually learning. So how many of you have watched a YouTube video in the past week? Yeah, there you go. How many of you have listened to a podcast in the past week? Now, it's always interesting for me that podcasts are not that popular with videos. So I'm a newly converted podcast fan because I'm commuting from Pretoria to Joburg every day and back again, and it's the only time I get to actually do a bit of learning, and that's the key. Can you find those little moments in your day that you can fill with something that you're passionate about to become a master of it? So and it's fascinating because managers come back to me and say, so we've got a learning program where I work, and we let our staff learn whatever it is they want to do. But a big thing, managers come back to me and say, but if she's learning about baking, how does that benefit the work that she has to do? And the idea there is that whatever it is that you're learning, there is a skill within that you are developing that you can transpose to whatever job you are doing today. So yes, I might be an avid baker, but the fact that I know how to follow a recipe means I know how to make a process work within my work environment. Okay. My last concept is I want to share with you my learning journey. So I attained my BA degree several years ago. And on the face of it, like I said just now, this is going to be, ooh, wow, she's going to be, not really actually, yeah, I mean, there's lots of people here that probably have way better degrees and honors, doctorates, etc., etc. But this is not the sum of who I am. It's just one tiny fraction of the individual. This is some of the stuff, just a little bit, that I've done in the past 2 weeks. From my favorite podcast to a recent book to a blog subscription around multi-potentialism. My last course that I did with MIT, online, in my own time. Ikigai, because I'm passionate about culture. And I've learned a fantastic new philosophy around how to bring fullness to your life through this concept of Ikigai. And of course, my formal education. And what I want to leave you with is the idea of bringing your humanity back into your learning journey. Ignite that passion and show it to the world. Share it. Thank you very much. Oh, cool, we do. Oh, great. Okay. Oh, okay, you're going to put me on the spot. We have time for questions. Okay, so there's a question at the front here which says, how do I motivate my learning journey? And I suppose, if you go back to the idea of Simon Sinek, which is, you always start with why. It's actually some of the work that I did with a career strategist of mine who's standing right there, which is start with why. Why is it important to you? And that's my motivation. So for instance, I've spent a lot of time delving into the concept of parenting because my why right now is to provide the right tool set for my child. And so if you can find that why is that learning important for whatever that is, whatever subject matter that is, that already starts to ignite that motivation to move forward. It was a really difficult journey for me to get my BA degree because I was working full-time at the stage, and it was the only reason why I managed to finish it, was because I was deeply passionate about what it is that I was learning. Yep.
So we're just going to give you the mic, not to put you on the spot, but we'd like to hear the question.
My question is, what journey did you take to become a ACP in LifeLong? What was the turning point?
Sure, that's quite a question. I don't think I can own the title subject matter expert in lifelong learning, because my learning journey will never be over. I think it comes down to the idea of passion for the subject matter and my exposure to our transformation where I work, and some of the highlights that have come out of that and my learning journey that's happened there. But yeah, but I don't think, I mean, I'm passionate about it, but I don't think I could fully own the title subject matter expert. But thank you. Anyone else?
Final questions for Jessica? Okay, so Jessica, with that I'd like to say thank you
My pleasure.
for an interesting session and for the sort of encouragement and the challenge to keep learning and to keep being open also about what learning is.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank everyone here for still being here at this time and for the quality of your